Hey, it's Lynn Galadner, and this is the Make Meaning podcast. I'm founder of the Your People marketing and PR agency, and I lead the Make Meaning movement, a platform that helps purpose-driven visionaries and leaders do business with meaning. On this podcast, you'll hear stories of how people dare to take chances to live the life they want, with meaningful work and purposeful days. There are many ways to fill your life with meaning. Join us at makemeaning.org to learn more. Now, on to the show. Welcome back to the Make Meaning podcast. Today, I am delighted to speak with the Honorable Jan Tinetti, a government minister from New Zealand. Concerned by menstrual supply inequality issues that kept students from attending school, in 2020, New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern and Associate Education Minister Jan Tinetti launched a pilot program to offer free period products to 3,200 young people throughout their nation. The program was such a success that they announced that this year they would expand the program nationwide to provide information about periods, period products, and other elements to help manage menstruation. Today, I am so honored to welcome the Honorable Jan Tinetti to the Make Meaning podcast to talk about how New Zealand is leading the world in period advocacy and educational equity. Minister Tinetti is a Labour Party member of Parliament based in Tauranga, the fifth most populous city of New Zealand. She grew up rurally outside Christchurch and earned degrees in education. For more than 20 years before becoming a member of New Zealand's government, Tinetti taught primary school and was a school principal. She is a fierce advocate for equal educational opportunities. After seeing families struggle in her local community, she campaigned for New Zealand families to access everything they need to thrive. After a former student ended his own life, Jan Tinetti entered the political realm driven by a belief that government has a role to play in ensuring access to services that help people be their best and live good, healthy lives. Today, Jan Tinetti is Minister of Internal Affairs, Minister for Women, and Associate Minister of Education. Minister Jan Tinetti, welcome to the Make Meaning podcast. Minister Tinetti, thank you so much for joining me on the Make Meaning podcast. Welcome.
Oh, thank you so much. And you are more than welcome. I'm very excited to be here.
Well, it is quite an honor. I've been admiring New Zealand from afar for quite a while, and I was thrilled that I could speak with you about your Access to Period Products program. So I wanted to start with that and ask you a little bit about the pilot program that your government launched last year and learn a little bit about what inspired it and then how you're rolling it out as a nationwide effort. So tell me about that.
Oh, thank you. I'm really excited about this program and I'm excited to be leading the rollout of it. It started in 2020 as a response to start with to COVID, and it started in 15 schools, which is a small compared to what you have in the States, but it was a geographically designed area, or defined area, I should say, and it was reason that we chose that particular area was that it gave us a number of different sorts of schools that we were looking at, and we could see how this could roll out in each and every school with their different profiles. Mm-hmm. And it was really successful. The feedback that we got from the young people involved in the schools was that this is a must. And it's certainly something for me that I was really committed to, because I've seen a disproportionate effect on young people's attendance just caused for periods. And this is a conversation that in 2021 we're still having. 50% of our population have periods. We had not come up with any solutions around that. So it was a given that from the strong results that we actually got from this, that we would be looking at rolling it out further. And I was very fortunate that my cabinet colleagues here in government decided that this was a worthy project that we should be looking at. And so just recently, only about 4 weeks ago, I was able to announce alongside the Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Jacinda Ardern, mm-hmm. I was able to announce that we were rolling this out in June of this year to every school that opted into this program. And so far, we've had about a 2/3 take up, but that's in a short space of time. We're thinking that we will get very close to all the schools signing up for this, so that this will involve girls and young women who are in education having access to free period products.
Wonderful. And I know that information is part of this campaign as well. So is it also to educate and empower girls and women so that they know what's going on and then also provide them with the supplies that they need?
To be fair, as an ex-educator, this is the part that I'm most excited about because I know that resources to help teachers in this area have not been good, actually. In fact, I would say zero in the education area.
Mm-hmm.
And again, in my speech in the day that we rolled this out and made this announcement to, it was a secondary school who had been part of the pilot. And I said, this is what the girls told us the most. They told us that there needed to be education, but not just for the girls, that there needed to be education for the boys. But I couldn't believe in the pilot that some of the feedback that we were getting was that girls and boys were still separated and being taught with about periods. And I thought, boys need to know this information too. And actually, as I was saying that, the boys in the audience were there nodding to me that absolutely they need to know about this. One of the things that the girls talked about was still a sense of shame when they had their periods. And that's what we need to overcome. As I've already said, we're in 2021. Half of the population have periods. This is not something to be ashamed of. This is something that we need to openly be able to talk about, taking into consideration cultural differences as well. But then we need to talk about why those cultural differences exist, and we need to have this open and honest conversation about it. And we need for girls to be able to feel confident. And like our Indigenous population here, Māori, they talk about periods as a life force because they're a life giver. And it's such a beautiful way of looking at it that we need to be making sure that this is spread across all of our ethnic groups and everyone. We can be so narrow sometimes in our viewpoints. But the other part of that is that the teachers actually said to us, we want to have the resources to be able to educate and to be able to have these conversations. I actually didn't need for them to tell me that, but I'm so pleased that they did, because it's something that we will grow. It's starting small, this part of it. We're getting this rollout starting, but it is an area that I am leading in building the education capacity of our educators.
I love that. There's so much of what you just said that I think is beautiful, especially the idea of your period, your cycle as a life force, which of course it is. And we should be able to embrace that. But you're right. I remember when I was taught in school, the girls in one room, the boys in the other. And yes, it's so needed to talk about everybody's well-being, everybody's physical humanity, and remove any shame and make sure there's dignity attached to it. So now I want to know what inspired this campaign in New Zealand. So what was the kernel or the inspiration that got it off the ground?
So, as I said, it was a result to start with of some of the impacts from COVID and what was happening here, but it's not that it hasn't been talked about for a long time, because it has. And what we've been starting to notice for a number of years now is that more and more girls were experiencing period poverty, and the fallout of period poverty was actually not attending school. And again, I go back to my time as an educator, in that I had young people from 5 years to about 11 years in my last school. And actually, I had a growing number of young people who were as young as 6 getting their period for the first time.
Wow.
And if you start to add up that they weren't coming to school for a whole week from every month from the time that they were 6, that actually places a big barrier in front of them having a strong and quality education. And we actually were talking about this as a government and saying, what can we do about this? Well, let's take that barrier away. It's really important to us to look at the barriers and see what we can do to either minimise or actually take that barrier fully away. And this is where it started from. It started as a conversation. I have to do a shout out here to my predecessor, the Honourable Julianne Genter, who was Minister for Women, who did a lot of advocacy in this space. And she led a lot of those discussions. And then, of course, our wonderful Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Jacinda Ardern, she actually, as part of her Prime Minister's Fund to begin with, put the initial funding up for the pilot. And this is why she wanted to be part of the announcement of the full rollout, because this has been really special to her. I have to say that when the young people saw her coming into the school that particular day, there was a great thank you to her for what she had done to promote this program. So it has been something that has been on the books. There is another reason too, though. We're close now to 50% of our parliamentarians are women. Okay. I think we're sitting just over 48%. And in the last parliament, that was high as well. It's grown each parliament. It does bring a different focus on legislation. Yes. When you have diversity, it does bring a different focus on legislation. And women have been a big part of the conversations of breaking down those barriers. It's not necessarily something that men have focused on in the past, but now that we do have a large number of women who are in Parliament, those conversations are happening more about how we can take something that has been a barrier for girls and young women and just break it.
I love it. And there's just so much, we're sitting over here in the United States completely envious of so many things about New Zealand, especially during COVID. I said to my husband as I was preparing for this podcast, let's just pack up and move there. Not that you want us with all of our COVID nightmare over here, but honestly, it's so inspiring to have this fresh perspective on leadership and just understanding the humanity of your people. I know that this effort to eliminate period poverty and really increase equity in access to education is just one piece of what you're doing. I know that you have a lot of passion toward addressing poverty, increasing school attendance, and overall positively impacting children's well-being. So I wonder if you could tell me a little bit about some of the other initiatives that are happening now in New Zealand to reduce barriers to education for your students.
Yeah, well, we've got a number of projects that are on the go. We have some of the ones that you'll see right in the face are our Ka Ora Ka Ako. Now that's Te Reo Māori, but basically that is a healthy lunch program that we're rolling out to schools. I know that there's other countries in the world that have had lunch programs, but we're very much more of a universal approach to our programs in need here in this country. And so what we're doing is rolling them out to whole schools. So we don't select separate children or different children within the school. We ensure that we are rolling out to whole schools. And currently at the moment, we're almost at 100,000. I think it was 88,000, but I think the latest figures I read was that we're almost at 100,000 young people. By the end of this year, we're working to get healthy lunches into 200,000, but that's built on what we've already done. We've partnered with, over years, corporates to bring in free breakfasts to all schools, a milk program, a fruit in schools program. We have social workers in schools, we have counsellors in schools, and we're increasing that. So a big focus on that. But it's all stemmed and comes from the fact that we have a focus on young people. Our aim is to make New Zealand the best country in the world to be a child. And we have a minister for reduction of child poverty. Just so happens that minister happens to be our Prime Minister. So we're very much focused on the fact that just gives the importance of how important it is to us to lift children out of poverty. We have a wellbeing budget, so we unashamedly put wellbeing goals into our budget now, and we must report on those wellbeing goals every year. And one of those is the reduction in child poverty is one of those goals that we are working towards. We have 9 markers that we must actually report on in the child wellbeing, and all of those are reducing. Even COVID may change that a wee bit, but prior to that, we are seeing that there's a big reduction is happening in that area. That's really exciting. It's about putting the people back at the centre of what we're doing. Sometimes in this country we don't ask or focus on the why or whose fault it is. We just know that there's an issue and what are we going to do about it? I will say that that's probably come over time as well. It is part of our who we are as New Zealanders, and it's part of who we are as a country. But we have that issue, and so what can we do? And it's about putting that back at the centre.
I love that. That's beautiful. Now, I know that before you entered the government, you were an educator and you were also a school principal. So I wonder if you can tell me a little bit about your experiences as a teacher in the classroom, as a school principal, and how those experiences inform your government leadership today.
So I loved being a school teacher, and I loved being a school principal. And I tell anyone that's willing to listen about it that that's the best job I've ever had in the world, and that I can't believe that there's a better job than working with young people, because making a difference on a day-to-day level is just absolutely amazing. And my last school that I was principal at for 11 years, I was principal at a school called Maryvale in Tauranga. And Maryvale is from one of the lowest socioeconomic areas in New Zealand. We have what we call deciles, and decile 1 to 10. And a decile 1 school are the young people that tend to come from the lowest socioeconomic areas, and Maryvale was a decile 1 school. And so we saw quite a number of issues that were related, poverty issues that were related with being in that low socioeconomic area. And we worked really hard as a school to overcome that and to put initiatives in place that would actually help young people in leading really amazing lives from our school. But I kind of got to the point where I knew that we were only changing things on a surface level, and if we wanted to make a real difference, then I had to actually be here in this place, which is in government. And I reluctantly, very, very reluctantly, when I was asked to stand and said, yes, okay, I will stand for Parliament, and didn't think up for a moment that I would be elected in, and yeah, I did.
And we're so glad that you were. Look at all that you're doing. It's fantastic.
So I left this amazing job that I loved and came into Parliament, but I love it. Like, I don't have any regrets, because I am able to be part of a team that does put children right at the centre and focuses on children and their families and their well-being. And that's really important to me, as you probably can tell.
Yeah.
So how does that inform what I do now? It informs everything that I do. Those young people, those families, they live in my heart every single day, and every single decision that I'm making, I think back to how this is going to impact upon them. And every single time I can think of a young person who I know that this is going to make their lives better. So it's keeping that reality in check the whole time. I think it's really important as a politician that you also know who it is that you're making the big impact on, and who the people are that you are actually able to make a positive difference in their lives. And for me, that's what my time as an educator is bringing. So I'm also Associate Minister for Education. So I have a really close relationship with the sector, because I know when there are issues in the sector, I know that I've actually experienced the same issues. And so I can have those conversations, and hopefully over my time in this role, I can actually have a positive impact in the changes that we can see in that area as well.
Beautiful. So I know we've heard some of the programs that you're really proud of. I wonder if you could detail for me one or two other really proud or impactful moments that you've had since you joined Parliament.
So you know, it's a strange place, Parliament. It's a really strange place, because it's an environment that people don't actually understand until they come in and what you do. So they don't actually see the results of what you actually are able to achieve and what you're doing. But on a personal level, we have a system here in New Zealand that is members' bills. They get drawn out of a ballot, and you have a chance to change legislation and take legislation through the House. And on a personal level, I was able to do that to ensure, because one of mine got pulled out in the very first ballot of the last Parliament, and I was able to take that through and change legislation. And what it essentially meant was that the educators of this country were guaranteed to have a say through consultation in our learning priorities that we set as a country, that the minister set as as a country. So that was a personal level. But as a like part of the government that I've been really fortunate enough to be part of, actually the proudest moments for me are how we have come through the pandemic of the last year. And as you rightly pointed out, the great leadership that was shown, but also I go back to the fact that once again, we showed our values by putting the people of this country front and centre of what we did. And we worked as a team relentlessly to make lives, to minimise the impact of the pandemic on the people of this country. It's still hard. So we're not glossing over, like, you know, the economic fallout for some people is going to be hard, but it's a lot less than what it would have been if we hadn't have put people at the centre and put a really strong health response first. So that strong health response has informed a much stronger economic recovery than what we would have seen. So I'm really, really, really proud of the work that we have done.
It's incredible. That's one of the questions I did want to ask you, is about your response to the pandemic, which has been noted on the world stage. You know, so we're sitting over here locked in our houses and wondering, you know, what's going to happen, and everybody's so afraid. And that's really the story around the world. And we get conflicting stories. And over here, we had just such turmoil and tumult. We didn't know whether we were paying attention to politics or to public health or to racial turmoil or all of the above. And so 2020 was a disaster in the United States in a lot of ways. And we were watching countries like New Zealand and, you know, sort of enviously and wonderingly admiring such swift and inspirational leadership. And I just wonder if you have thought at all about what message New Zealand's bold moves are sending to nations around the world. And of course, every circumstance is different. Every population is different. And size matters too, how many, you know, populate the country. But what message do you think is coming from New Zealand around the world today in terms of these decisive actions and this leadership?
So I think there were some key things that came out right initially in the response and in the communication of the response. One was the great communication that was actually shown from our leadership, not just the leadership of the Prime Minister, but the leadership of the Director General of Health as well. They stood united. They never contradicted each other. They backed each other the whole time. And from that day one, the New Zealand population could see that every decision was being made on scientific evidence, and there was a really strong scientific approach to what we were communicating out to the people. And I think that's a really strong message, is that you always stand on facts. So the Prime Minister always communicated facts to the people, but communicated it in a really empathetic way. So she, you know, we can name every single person of our 22 people who have died from COVID. We as a country can name every single person, and we mourned every single person. So the empathy was there right from the word go around what people were experiencing when the pandemic hit us in a major way. And the clear communication was just absolutely superb. And what that led to is that it led to our team. And the Prime Minister talks very much about we're a country of just over 5 million people. She talks very clearly of our team of 5 million. And every single person feels the responsibility of being in that team, because the communication was clear that it was to every single person in that team. And even today, you know, I'll get people that contact me that are saying, oh, you know, I saw someone in the team that was letting the side down because they weren't scanning with their QR code, because we have the contact tracing through the QR codes. And I said to them, you know, you're letting the team down, and it made them go and do the scanning. So, you know, there's that responsibility to the team that people feel very let down if they think that people have not been part of the team. So the communication was really clear, and I think that's one message. I think, as I said, the empathy, just that from the centre, there was a real empathy for absolutely every single person in this country, and there still is. That's still part of the response. So while, as I said, it's really hard, it's not easy. We've got many freedoms that I know that we possibly take a lot for granted. I look out my window and I can see lots of people just moving around as they normally would be moving, and interacting as they normally would be moving, because we're in a position, because we've worked hard to get to that position.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean to say that there's not a lot of people that aren't feeling the full impacts of an economic market shock that's really hit them. So it's not easy, but the empathy for those people is there.
Yeah.
And while the response isn't going to be able to bring back every business, for example, we're trying as hard as we can, and people generally know that as well. And people feel safe. That's the other thing. Safety of our people has always been paramount. And so people feel that sense that we are trying to keep them safe. And they say that all the time. So I think those are the messages. I don't think there's any difference to other themes that I've talked about here. It's putting the people of the country back at the centre.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I got chills when you said 22 people and that you knew every single name. I mean, I almost just started to well up with tears because that is such a powerful notion. And the number's so small, and that's just well done. I mean, really well done. So I wish we could say the same. And one day when this is done, then we can come back and visit, and we can admire all the hard work that New Zealand, has put in, when you will welcome us again. So that's probably far in the future, I know. I have two more questions before we finish. And one is, I read a quote by you that I loved, which I wanted to read back to you and then ask you a question about it. And so you said, "Children are our future. It is up to all of us to make sure they feel loved and nurtured so they have every opportunity to be the best they can be." And we've heard a lot of that already in this conversation. So I wondered what you think children really need to feel loved and nurtured. And then on the back of that, what is the role of government versus the role of community or family in providing that for children?
Yeah, there's so much in that.
Yes.
Because I inherently love every single child. Like, there is so much potential in every single child. And I sometimes hear people say, oh, this child has these issues, or this child has these issues. Actually, it's not the child. The child is a product of what is around them. And every single one of us needs to work towards giving that child the love so that they can be the absolute best that they can be.
Yeah.
On a personal level, never give up. It's building those relationships so that that young person knows that you're never, ever going to give up on them. So no matter what they do, or what they face, or what happens to them and their experiences they have, you are never, ever going to lose sight of who they are, and you're always going to be there for them. And I still have ex-pupils today who contact me, and they're in their 30s now, and they contact me and they will say exactly that. And they will say, if they need support, they know that even now I'm still there. So I'm never, ever going to give up. In my last school, with those young people who did come from low socioeconomic areas, they know that they can contact me on anything, and I will be there for them. So it's about always being present. And actually, you know what? I don't think there's much difference at a government level. It's about being present for our young people all the time. And that's why that child wellbeing strategy is so important, because it's about actually everything that we do must have that as our focus. So we're never going to give up on the children of this country. So it's just taking it from that micro level and exactly what must happen for each and every individual to the macro level. It's the same principle.
I love that. I talk a lot about how in our country, we used to have, a couple of generations ago, there were multiple generations of family in the home. There were a sense of a neighborhood as an extended family. And that's changed a lot in recent years and recent decades. And I think that makes parenting and raising children even harder, because children need multiple things from multiple adults to support them. And so I do hope that at some point we can get back to that notion of, it takes a community, it takes the multitudes to come together to support each and every child so that they get what they need where they need it.
Yeah.
So on this show, it's called the Make Meaning Podcast for a reason. And we like to focus on how people find meaning in work and purpose in life. And I always close by asking my guests what advice they might offer to listeners for finding their personal meaning and using that to guide them in their work. And I know from everything we've talked about that you have been so fortunate to find your personal meaning and really built several careers on that. And I'm sure you've guided all of the students under your care in the same direction. But what advice might you offer our listeners as we depart today?
So, I'm not going to use my own advice here because I can't say it any better than one of my absolute heroes, Glennon Doyle.
Ooh.
And I use Glennon's work, his quote, often in what I'm doing in my work. And it's just simply this: how do I find my purpose? How do I find my people? Here's how to find both. Figure out what breaks your heart in the world, and that's your purpose. Find the folks working to fix that thing in the world and join them. Those are your people.
I love that. That is just a perfect note to end our conversation. And I'm going to ponder that advice myself a bit. So, Minister Tinetti, thank you so much for being on the Make Meaning podcast.
Oh, you are more than welcome. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Make Meaning podcast with Lynn Galadner. You can find us wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. If you like what you've heard here, join us over at makemeaning.org to discover how you can add more meaning to your life. And hey, if you like our conversations, please subscribe and share this episode with the meaningful people in your world.